Hello and welcome to Politics 101 on Tuesday evening. And today I am reliably informed is Valentine's Day. St. Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone. Those of you who are lovers, St. Valentine's Day, of course, is the day for lovers. Welcome to Politics 101. Good evening to you. Good evening to you if you're joining us from Guyana. If you're joining us from Guyana, from Georgetown, Guyana, if you're from Georgetown, Guyana, good evening. Good evening and welcome. If you're joining us from other parts of the country, welcome. Good evening to the people of West Coast Berbice. Those of you who are on the quarantine coast, welcome. If you're joining us from the hinterland, Northwest, Bay Region 1, Region 10, Region 8, well, parts of Region 10, Region 8, Region 9, Region 7, welcome to Politics 101. I see some people, Winston, Rhonda, our friend Vibert White. Good evening to you, Yvonne Rodriguez, joining us from Barbados, BIM. Welcome to Politics 101. We are ready to roll this evening. We're going to have Ganesh Mahipaul here to speak with us later on. And of course, last night, we had the two lawyers representing the interests who if not respond favorably, then of course they'll be going to court. They did say they have a very strong case, but they prefer mediation first. Good evening to those of you joining us from the Caribbean, the wider Caribbean. Of course, we are part of the Caribbean, the wider Caribbean, the old West Indies, as we call them. Those of you in the Eastern Caribbean, from Grenada in the south, Grenada, Carriacou, Petit, Martinique, right up to Bahamas and Jamaica in the north, and from Barbados easterly, Barbados. Welcome to Politics 101. Welcome to Politics 101. Good evening to you, those of you who are joining us from North America. Welcome to Politics 101. Those of you who are joining us from North America, from the United States, from Canada, welcome to Politics 101. Good evening, Diane, Karen, Zenita, Donna, June. Welcome to all of you to this evening's edition of Politics 101. Ganesh Mahipaul is here, and we're going to be talking to him about a range of issues, recent issues in the news, from the budget right up to the developments in Mocha and Buxton and all the stuff that's happening in the news. We have had Ganesh here for a while, and you know he's one of the more visible members of Parliament, quite eloquent, and delivers his verdicts and his comments in ways that are reminiscent of some of the more famous orators of our time, and before. So Ganesh, he's backstage and ready to go. I'm just waiting on you all to take your seats. Last night we dealt with the law. As I said, we had the two lawyers on, two lawyers on, Vivian Williams and Lyndon Amsterdam. They were on there last night, and from all indications, the program was well received. I know some of you have made queries wanting to retain the services of Mr. Amsterdam. I've gotten those mails. Today was my teaching day, so I had little time for anything else, but I shall respond to your queries for the information for Mr. Amsterdam's chambers. Welcome to Politics 101. Are you joining us from Jamaica, from Barbados, from Trinidad and Tobago, Antigua and Barbuda? Are you joining? It's carnival time in Trinidad and carnival time in Guyana. Sometimes we clash when it's carnival time. Last night I looked at the semifinals of the Calypso competition there in Trinidad at Skinner Park. I always considered that to be the real hunting ground because it's a hell of a test for the Calypsonians at Skinner Park, and then they about 40 of them, and then they will shortlist the finalists for the big showdown at the big yard on Calypso weekend, Carnival weekend, sorry. I have not been seeing much about our Calypso competition there in Guyana, but I assume that things are moving ahead. We are a little bit behind Trinidad in this business. I had a chance to look at some of the tents in Trinidad. The first time, of course, they're having carnival since the pandemic, both in Trinidad and in Guyana. And so people were glad to be out. The tents were relatively full in Trinidad. And I always wonder why we have not had a Calypso tent yet in Guyana, where you, in the carnival season, you can go every night to the various tents around Port of Spain and in San Fernando, and I suppose in other parts of the country. We have not had a tent yet where you can go and see the Calypsonians, hear them. We have to wait until they get into the semifinals and then finals. Happy Mani season, of course, to us. And those of you who are in Trinidad, I know it's Bacchanal time coming up. Welcome to Politics 101. Good evening, Monica Johnson, Leroy McLean, Desiree Simmons, how are you? I haven't said hello to you in a long time. Clayton Hines, that name sounds familiar. My cousin from Kanji area, Derek McCallman, Kanji. That is a part of the country that we don't pay much attention to. Kanji River, there's lots of legend about Kanji River. You spiritualists will know about the song that they sing at the spiritual service. Kanji water go follow me, muma muma. Kanji water go follow me. There's something with the Kanji River that is very sacred to African spiritualists. And my friend Clayton Hines, who is part of the Burnham Foundation, and he hosts that program. He's from down there in Kanji, and exchange we always exchange information because my relatives hail the Hines. They hail from Kanji / New Amsterdam. Um, and my mother strayed away and eventually ended up in Boston. But our family are from that area down the Kanji River. Um, uh, lots of folk stories about that area. Good evening and welcome to Politics 101. Ganesh Mahipaul is here. We West Indian people, we don't make joke, we want to move fast. Ganesh Mahipaul. We don't we take the shortcut, or that Mahipaul story. That is for when the Hindus they're doing the thing. But we Guyanese, shortcut, quick time, that is Mahipaul. So when I said Mahipaul, he always references the fact I call his name properly. Our condolences, of course, to Donna Brutus. Good evening. Our condolences to the family and friends of Alan Fenty. Alan Fenty, who passed away on the weekend, folklorist, columnist, writing that column in the Stabrook News every Friday, frankly speaking. He passed away. He's someone who has really kept the folk tradition of Guyana alive, and he will be sorely missed. So let's get going, and let me bring in Ganesh Mahipaul. And I think Ganesh is here. Good evening, Mr. Mahipaul.
Good evening, Dr. Hines. I trust you're hearing me loud and clear.
Loud and clear, loud and clear, loud and clear. How have you been? I know it's been busy in Parliament and all that stuff.
Yes, well, the Parliament, we had it there for, well, I would say 3 weeks. Some are saying 2, but I would say 3, because from the day the budget was presented on to the debates, that period was when members of Parliament had to do their research and prepare their budget presentation. And then you had that entire week of budget debates, and that was followed by the other week where we examined the estimates and subsequent approval of the budget 2023. So it was a hectic period indeed, and I was one of the 14 MPs that fell sick during that period, unfortunately. And I think from both sides, the government side had about 8 MPs, and the opposition had about 7 MPs that fell ill during that period. And, we recovered and so on. We were back on the battlefield. It was an intense fight. And we're back. And now it is a matter of us informing the population as to what really is in budget 2023 for them, and also how is it that they should take part in getting what is rightfully theirs from budget 2023, albeit budget 2023 doesn't really have anything of great significance for the poorer class of people. It is more a get the rich richer budget and the poor poorer budget. But you have some areas like the Sustainable Livelihood Entrepreneurial Development Program. You have this Men on Mission, and you have some rural vulnerable funds that are available. And I think that as much as these, in my view, are slush funds, it can only be considered slush funds if I know that people have been applying to utilize these funds and were not granted the approval that is necessary for them to up their life, or for them to develop themselves. So I will be sensitizing people on the availability of these funds. And if you are following the questioning of the estimates, I did inquire as to what is the criteria for persons to apply for these grants, for persons to apply for access to these monies, because it is intended for them and not family, friends, and cronies, as the PPP is known to be doing and have done in the past. So that is it in a nutshell for budget. And coming back to what you said, how am I doing? I would like to believe I'm doing well.
Yeah, you're doing well. And you right away in your opening remarks use the S word, slush fund. And I've heard that term being used by almost all of the members of parliament on the opposition side. I heard the leader of the opposition himself referred to the budget as a slush fund. Can you expand for us? Why have you characterized the budget as a slush fund? It's really a serious indictment.
Well, first of all, people have to understand what is a slush fund. And my interpretation of a slush fund is money belonging to an entire country being utilized for political gains of one political party. And I have concluded that there are huge sums of monies in budget 2023 that fall into that category of being a slush fund. When I examine the budget carefully and you see, for example, men on mission under the Ministry of the Presidency or Office of the President, an allocation of $500 million, it begs the question as to whether this is a structured organization or if it's a structured department that warrants $500 million of taxpayers' money. Now, we will recall that the Men on Mission came into being via an idea from Irfan Ali. And he just woke up one morning and said, we are going to pull men from all over our society and do a launch. And we're going to call it Men on Mission. And you see that the Guyana Defense Force, the Guyana Prison Service, the Guyana Fire Service, the Guyana Police Force, and all these other institutions had to bring out the male figures in their respective organizations to attend that launch. I know for a fact that regions were given instructions to pull people and bring them to this launch because the intention was for Irfan Ali to have at least 1,000 men present at the Guyana Defense Force ground so that he can launch this Men on Mission thing. And then there was the talk that this is going to be a venture where men in society are going to participate in assisting to lift people out of poverty and to basically help them to become better men and better people of society. Then we saw that it blossomed into respective regions and various ministers were given responsibility in a very ad hoc manner to control Men on Mission in the respective regions. Then one day we saw Irfan Ali was walking through a community. He saw a senior citizen in a deplorable house, and ad hocly again, he said, let's go build a house. And then we heard that it is the corporate Guyana, the private sector and the business community. They are going to assist in terms of providing the materials and the likes for us to uplift the lives of people, which all in all, Dr. Hines, I have no problem with. I think it is remarkable. I think it is a good idea and an initiative to make men better. But where it became frightening is when I saw in Budget 2023 a sum of $500 million allocated for men on mission. And what is frightening is the fact that how is this money going to be spent? This $500 million belong to the people of Guyana. This $500 million came from taxes that are being paid by taxpayers to the coffers of Guyana. So when you are doing a budgetary allocation, you do it with the full knowledge and ability to apply it back to the people and not for political reasons. And because there is no established structure, it baffles me as to how this money will be spent. And I ask, is it that if an Ali will go and walk in Lenora, is it that he's going to go walk in Fowles? Or is it that he's going to go walk in Enmore? Or is it that he's going to go walk in Babujan? Or is he going to walk in Port Morant? And everybody that he sees in these communities that are living in a broken shackle or a house that is in a deplorable state, he's going to say, take the money and build a house for them. And then it begs the question, are there not people who are living in more deplorable state in villages like Buxton, in villages like Denamstel, in villages like Good Intent, in villages like Palmyra or Kanji or New Amsterdam? So when I speak about a structure, Dr. Hines, I am speaking about an established, proper financial regulation principle where people can apply to this program for assistance. And when they apply to this program for assistance, they must be assessed. And there must be a team that draws the conclusion that, yes, this person is in need for assistance via the construction of a new home, or this person is in need of assistance via some other means. But we cannot have ad hoc visits and monies doling out to people. That is my problem with it. It has to be structured and it has to be established and it has to be spent within the financial regulations of the country. And there is where it became frightening for me when Gail Teixeira could not have provided the answer and wanted to play on people's emotions. Gail Teixeira attempted to play on the emotions of people, trying to give some degree of sentimental speech, appealing to their soft side and telling us about how men on mission is really a genuine thing to help people. But we know the PPP. The PPP has been in this country ruling us for 23 plus years before, and they have come back with a worse practice. They have come back with greater segregation. They have come back with an ability to destroy. So it is frightening. And I cannot take Gail Teixeira's words and say it is gospel, because Gail Teixeira was proven on many times to be nothing else but saying things that are farther from the truth. So when you see us in the opposition calling for documents and calling for structure and calling for criteria and calling for all manner of fiduciary systems to ensure that accountability and transparency is paramount above everything else, it is because we know who we're dealing with. And because we know who we're dealing with, we cannot take their words for granted. So I am yet to see how the $500 million will be expended. I am yet to see the $300 million that is in the Small Business Development Fund, how that is going to be expended too. Because last year, Dr. Hines, there was a $300 billion in the Small Business Development Fund. And that is intended to assist people in entrepreneurial businesses and so on, and how they intend to come off as, to uplift themselves. But what we had, what was the practical thing on the ground, was at the wee hours of the morning, trucks drove into communities and they got their political hogs that are all over the country to call out their party card bearing members to come and collect chickens, baby chicks. And they were giving them 50, 100 baby chicks and chicken feed and tell them go and mine chicken and sell or mine and take it for use for yourself. Now, when you are going to have these kinds of operations, Dr. Hines, in a budget, when you are going to have these kinds of monies placed in a budget, you are expected to justify the spending. You are expected, for example, in this small business development fund, persons should submit to you a proposal. And that proposal is supposed to show you how the money is going to be spent and how your business will grow from that investment. So if the government is going to give you a grant of, let's say, $5 million, you have to prove that this $5 million is the investment to build your project so that you can now expand and become greater in the field of business you're in and make you a better productive entrepreneur. But what we didn't have that. All we had was the government doling out money. Look, take this, go and do this. Take this, go and do this. And that is the problem about developing a country. We cannot develop a country by only giving handouts. Our country can only be developed once there is a structured approach, once there is a proper attempt to better people's lives, and once there is a focus on educating the nation on how to fish and not necessarily giving them the fish without them knowing how to get it.
Ganesh Mahipaul here tonight, walking us through the budget. He started off, of course, by telling us that the budget is akin to a slush fund, and he has given us some examples of the slush. You know, governments try to hide money, and they come up with these programs. Ganesh, which department, which ministry does that Men on a Mission story fall on? The Office of the President?
Yes, Office of the President. And it's a
Yes.
capital expenditure.
So you see, we've been paying a lot of attention to the fact that the budget has a very, very high amount of money for infrastructural development. But then they throw in these little $500 and something. And when you add up the $500 and something, they come up to a lot of millions going on to billions of dollars. And remember, the budget is almost $782 billion. So these people have become kind of con artists. So they learn how to hide money that they want to siphon off for the people, and they do it.
Dr. Hines, I can't remember what was the figure that I tallied up during my budget speech, but it's in the billions of dollars when we talk about this slush fund. And look, when you look, this is the capital. These little stickers are my little notes. But the SLED program is another frightening thing. The SLED program had in budget 2023 $1.5 billion. Not million and billion. That is $1.5 billion. In 2022, the government spent $1.096 billion on the same program, SLED. Now, what is SLED? SLED is Sustainable Livelihood Entrepreneurial Development. So when someone applies for assistance via SLED, it means that they have to have a program or a project that is sustainable. So it grows from when you get the assistance. So if somebody wants to do pig rearing, let me just use that as an example. A poor community man or woman interested in has this brilliant idea that I can do pig rearing and I can get this help from SLED, and I will turn over my profit and invest it back and grow my business. The government is yet to tell us how many people benefited from this $1.096 billion in 2022, and to give us an update on the growth they have made since receiving grants from the SLED program. But because the government is operating in a manner where everything is about politics, and the government is just doling out the money to their friends, families, and favorites, their party card members, people are collecting the money because they're getting it. It's basically free money, and they are spending it. I am not saying that the people are wrong for collecting it. If you're going to give me money, I'm going to collect it. But you, as a government, you have a duty and obligation to the people of this country to ensure that transparency and accountability are paramount. You have a duty to ensure that transparency and democracy and accountability define you in proper good
No,
governance.
good
But
governance,
we
yeah.
don't have that happening in our country. And I can turn to so many other programs that can be concluded as slush funds. Look, this one here is the small business. The writing may be too small for your viewers to see, but this is the Small Business Development Fund. $300 million provision for small business development. Oh, but you had 300 million last year, and you're yet to tell the nation how many people benefited from it. And a critical question is, the same people who benefited last year, will they be benefiting again this year? Is it just that you're handing out monies? And this is the frightening thing about what is happening in our country. And I think our people have to pay more attention to the happenings of our country now, because we have this significant sum of money that constantly comes into our coffers via or via the oil discovery and so on. And if we stay laid back and we settle for crumbs, then we will forever be in the doldrums. But if we pay attention, we speak out and speak up, and we recognize that accountability and transparency is lacking, accountability and transparency are lacking in this People's Progressive Party government, then we have to act on that and ensure that we do not put again the People's Progressive Party to handle this sum of money. Because when they give you $1, you have to ask yourself how many $10 are going into their pockets. It's a frightening thing. It's a very, very frightening thing. You see the largest budget, they boast about the largest budget, $781.9 billion. Big boasting. But ask yourself, have your life been better? They have been in office since 2020 of August. And what is it that you, as an ordinary citizen, you as a hardworking Guyanese who wakes up at 6 o'clock in the morning, fight yourself to get ready, because I know waking up is not an easy thing sometimes, especially when the rain falls, Dr. Hides. Fight yourself to meet that 7 o'clock deadline to leave home, because you don't want to be caught up into traffic, and you don't have the luxury of driving in a big SUV that carries the red and blue light to blink and sound your sirens as you go down. You don't have that luxury. The ordinary Guyanese don't. You have to meet that 7 o'clock deadline to leave home, to catch the road before you end up in this traffic and will cause you to become late. And then your boss will say you were late, you have to work extra hours, or you could be fired. So, and then you have children that you have to drop off to school, and you have so many hardship to face. Gasoline price has gone up. You have the basic food items have increased significantly. You can't go to the market and say you're going to shop for provision or greens, borrow pumpkin, okra, squash, you name it. All of them are carrying a steep price. Even to chicken, beef, and pork. You can't say that those are meat that you're going to use easily now. They're considered a high-end meat that you can probably only eat during special occasions. You have to ask yourself as ordinary Guyanese, how impactful have these budgets been since the People's Progressive Party took office?
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
were you able as an ordinary citizen of this country, an ordinary Guyanese, to put aside some more money for your leisure, or to put aside some more money for an outing on the weekend, or to go somewhere for a vacation? Were you? Those are things you must ask yourself, and be the judge and be a fair judge to recognize that you are in a worse place now than where you were before. So this budget, Dr. Hines, this budget is not one for ordinary Guyanese. It is not one for the ordinary citizens of this country. And a budget is supposed to be a program. It is supposed to be an investment. It is supposed to be a plan to lift people out of miseries, to lift people out of the nightmares they are facing, to lift the country to higher ends. But instead, what we have is a budget that is focused on making the rich richer and the poor poorer.
The rich and the poor. And of course, Ganesh, I know something about that SLET project because I sat down a few times with former Finance Minister Winston Jordan when he designed that program in the very first budget. I remember him inviting me to his office, and we sat down and talked about the SLET project, and he designed it. And the rules and regulations surrounding monies to be had from the SLET project. And it's really, first of all, they said that the coalition was doing stupidness, but yet they retained something like the SLET project, but they're now bastardizing it. They're using it in ways that it was not meant for. That's one. Two, we have the historical problem of poverty, and I'm really agreeing with you here. And then we have the problem of inflation, high prices, and so on. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt here and to say that, look, this problem of high prices is something that has been brought on by global factors. But if you're doing a budget, as you were saying, your budget must also indicate ways and means of dealing with the historical problem of poverty, which is almost 50%. But it must also deal with the clear and present danger of high prices. What are you doing? What is there in the budget for ordinary people? In fact, for all Guyanese who suffer from the problem of high prices, but especially the working people, what's in there to cushion? To cushion. So the government says it's now we caused the problem. Okay, we're going down the road with all you with that. But you have money to help people to cushion the problem. And what I'm hearing from you, Ganesh, is that they have not done so.
No, they have not, because you cannot give senior citizens such a meager increase. You cannot give public servants, I think it was 3,000 and something dollars when you do the calculation by moving the income tax threshold and so on. You cannot give those sums of monies and want us to believe that you're cushioning the problem. What you are doing there is that you are trying to put a cheap plaster over the cut. And that cheap plaster, after about 2 or 3 hours, will fall off and the cut will be exposed again. And that is not what cushioning the problem is supposed to be. Cushioning the problem is supposed to be you attempting to fill the cut by way of either stitching it up or by way of putting a proper medication so that it can heal. Not by you putting a cheap plaster that will fall off and then there is no other way to turn to get it resolved, save and except to wait till the next budget. But I want to say something, Dr. Hines, that really that hit me just now. These people who are serving as ministers of government and the president, you will recall that when the coalition government came to office in 2015, they attempted to regularize and stabilize and structurize the salaries and remuneration packages for the prime minister, the president, prime minister, senior ministers, and so on. Because when they came to government, the salary was one where permanent secretaries were getting more money than ministers of government. And the People's Progressive Party created a whole set of noise. The People's Progressive Party said that they raised their money 50%, and which is a lie. There was no 50% increase across the board. It was only senior ministers of government that received the 50%. The prime minister got, I think, 5%. The attorney general remained at his number. I think the president got 2%. And junior ministers, I think, got 12%, something like that. But it was done primarily to structurize and to ensure that people are paid based on their position. The highest paid being the president, the second highest paying being the prime minister, followed by the attorney general, followed by the senior ministers, followed by the junior ministers, followed by the parliamentary secretaries, followed by the permanent secretaries, and that was the order. And that's what you call a structure. You would recall that it is the People's Progressive Party who said that they will revert it back, that it is an insult to the Guyanese people, and that it should not happen. Dr. Hines, let me tell you that at the time when the AP and UAFC took that decision, a senior minister of government was receiving $800,000 or thereabout as their salary. In 2015, that is, $800,000, a senior minister. And the attorney general was receiving $1.2 million. And the prime minister, I think, was somewhere around 1.3 or $1.4 million. A junior minister was receiving anywhere around 500 and something thousand dollars. That was in 2015. Dr. Hines, in 2016, that figure didn't change, because when the coalition gave salary increases to public servants, they didn't take it for ministers and parliamentarians, because they had already structurized their increase in 2015. You with me?
Yes.
2017, when the public servants got increase in their salary, again, there was no increase for government ministers. 2018, when the salary increases went to public servants, there was no increase for government ministers. 2019, when there was salary increase for public servants, there was no increase for government ministers. So it was that one-time action that the AP and UFC took to standardize it. The PPP created a big hullabaloo. Let me inform your public now. The salary now of a senior minister of government is over $1 million a month. When the coalition was paying their senior minister 800 and something thousand dollars a month. The salary of the prime minister now is over $1.9 million a month. When the coalition was paying their prime minister somewhere around $1.2 million a month. The salary of the attorney general of this country right now is over $1.9 million a month, when the coalition was paying them far less. The salary of a junior minister now is over $800,000 a month, when the coalition was paying 500 and something thousand dollars a month. And those are the people who are sitting in office, squatting in office, complained about 50% salary increase, and they're enjoying it now, reaping it so nicely, taking increase upon increases as years go by, carrying it way above what the coalition was giving. And you're not here to say anything about it. They eat free, sleep free, drive free, don't pay for fuel, nothing is of an expense to any of them, so they don't know what the ordinary people are feeling. But you don't hear nobody keeping any noise now. You don't hear that the salary is a fat cat salary anymore. You don't hear that ministers receiving 50% high-end increase, but do the math and look at it carefully. Look at it carefully and you will see how hypocritical, diabolical, and how wicked and demonic the People's Progressive Party is to the people of this country. And you will be able to know that the coalition, indeed, when they were in office, made mistakes, but they had the best interests of Guyanese at heart. And for 5 years, they tried their utmost to bring some semblance of decency. So they tried their utmost to bring some semblance of unity among the people of this country. And we have gone back now to a time when it is friends, families, and favorites. And because we are at that stage, Guyanese will have to make a very serious decision come the next election. And I've always said this, Dr. Hines, and I'm becoming redundant here because I keep saying it over and over and over. We cannot plant bora and expect to reap okra. If you make your bed hard, you have to lie down panam. So you have to decide as Guyanese citizens if you will continue to be ridden like jackasses or horses, or you will take a stance and you will make your pronouncement and solidify your claim that this is your country and it is us, the ordinary people, that are supposed to be benefiting from the wealth of this nation, not a couple of people who just sit there, dress as they like, eat as they like, walk as they like, talk as they like, with no expenses and bringing hardship onto us as ordinary citizens. Change must come, but change can only come if we all can accept that we have with us a set of people who are aloof to the reality of our country, and we need to ensure that we put good governance, transparency, and accountability as the pinnacle of management in our country. And definitely, Irfan Ali and his cohorts have not proven themselves to be the guardians of this democracy.
Ganesh Mahipaul here, Member of Parliament and member of the People's National Congress, which of course is the large partner in the Partner for National Unity, talking to us about the budget and its implications, its consequences for the country at large, doing some comparative analysis between the coalition government and the present government. My viewers know that I don't appear in governments, but I think some of the points, if not all of them, made by Ganesh Mahipaul cannot be refuted. I have said that I was a critic of the government because I thought that I wanted to set an example to the country, to say that I can belong to something and still be critical of that thing. And I heard young Mahipaul said it tonight that the coalition did make mistakes. And you don't hear politicians say that very often. When you listen to political people, politicians, they never make mistakes. I hear a young man here saying, we made mistakes. And I said at the time, when I decided to support the coalition's re-election in 2020 and to be a candidate, that my agenda, my political agenda as a political radical, and by radical, you know, sometimes when we hear radical, we think about people crazy. Radical means root, people who go to the root. So for me, politics is about transformation, not reform. So in that sense, I'm a radical. As a political radical, I said in 2020 that when I looked at the two big contestants, there are two things that swayed me despite my criticisms of the coalition. One was that my agenda of transformation stood a better chance under the coalition than it did under the PPP. And secondly, that there was the potential for internal accountability because the coalition was a coalition of different parties. And when you have a coalition of different parties, yes, they can all hold one head. But sometimes in coalitions, you have an inbuilt, an inherent self accountability that goes on. Those were the two factors that swayed me. I was never going to go with the PPP. I was out with it. But it didn't mean necessarily I was going to go with the coalition. But I said those fundamental things are important when one critiques the coalition. And the other thing I said at that time in 2020, that it was the coalition government was the first government in the history of post-colonial Guyana, and that their human rights violations were zero, 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 zero. Nobody got locked up because there was opposition. There were no political assassinations and all that kind of stuff. Lo and behold, it's 2.5 years, and we have had human rights violations every single day. Every single day. Just over the weekend, I look at a poor lady. Police and demolition workers turn up, rip down she fence. Rip down she fence. We have now become the demolition country, lagging behind what Israel is doing to the Palestinians on the West Bank in the Middle East there. We have now become the #1 demolition country in the world. It seems to twist and turn. They're tearing down poor people's homes. The state, the government. And it was that bell that some of us rang in 2020 and said, be careful what you ask for. And that is what this young man is saying here tonight. You make your bed hard, you go meet him hard. Be careful what you ask for. You see, it's not just putting a party in power, but we have to ask questions based on the track record of that party. You couldn't look at the track record of the PPP and expect them to do anything better. I have come to the conclusion a long time that I will not support the PPP in power by itself. I'm a power sharer. I believe in a national government, and you can't have a national government without the people. I'm clear about that in my mind. But I am prepared to have them in power. So if people like myself work doubly hard to ensure that the PPP does not retain power on its own after the next election, it is because we've had too much. We have had too much. Politicians on the whole, as we know, tell people what they want to tell people to get you to vote, and they don't live up to their promises and so on. But this PPP government has taken the cake and take the cake. And when you look at the budget, there's nothing in that budget that is accidental. It's intentional. And you listen to this young man here tonight walking us through and showing how the slush fund works, where they hide in the money. A 500 million a budget. So 500 million money, but in the slush fund, you know how many billions it comes to? These people are barefaced. They're three-card trickster. Now you see me, now you don't see me. You see? And it is very important that we have these people like Ganesh who have to study this thing to come here and to talk us through this thing. And the budget, this 2023 budget, is the worst budget in a country that has had experience with bad budget because of the potential for graft, the potential for corruption. You men on mission, $500 million, and you can give old age pensioners a proper raise. Oh, they're not on a mission to. They work their entire life for this country. But you come up with something called man in a mission, and you put a whole set of money. You can't give money to old age pensioners. You can't give proper increases to public servants. Public servants who are there to make government work. If all the public servants go on leave tomorrow, government will ground to a halt. You want to use the army and the police to crush poor people protest. But when it comes to giving them money, you aren't giving them money, you're giving man on mission. But what happened to women on a mission? What happened to women on a mission? Them women who got left the picnic when the night come for go and guard all your business, guard all your homes, guard your own ministry. Oh, they're not on a mission. I'm on a mission. What about women on a mission? It just shows the priorities of this government. Ganesh, anything else you want to say about the budget before I move you to Maka?
Well, I just want to say to the citizens that they should try their best to reach out to the opposition members of parliament should they require assistance in one way or another, and we will be able to point them in the direction of where they should apply and what they should apply for. And, that's our job, that's our duty. And we have an obligation to meet with the citizenry to provide them with the information. But we will not be able to touch every single person. So those who we may not be able to touch, those who we may not be able to reach out to, they are also free to reach out to us. We have our various platforms. Facebook is an active manner of an active space where people communicate. All the MPs have Facebook pages. Some of us, our numbers are public. My own is public, for example, and persons are free to communicate and let us assist them to get the necessary assistance that they need via us making the necessary applications to the respective agencies for assistance as is stated in the budget. And when they are not assisted, then they themselves will see that this government was really on a mission to steal the taxpayers' money.
So, Ganesh, you are located there on the West Coast, Region 3.
Yes.
Region 3. And persons who would like to contact you, is there a place? Is there a public number that they can
No, well,
contact you?
my cell phone number, Dr. Hines, is public. My cell phone number is 694-4400. Everybody knows that number, and if they don't have that number, it's because they didn't want to know it. But they're free to drop me a Facebook message also via Messenger. Of course, when I'm in meetings and so on, I wouldn't be able to answer the phone, but my WhatsApp is pretty active, so they can always drop me a WhatsApp message also. And if they choose to write, they can write me also, and they can carry the letter to Congress Place, or even at the Region 3 PNCR office. That also is where they can, and I will get the copy of whatever they write. But again, I repeat, my number is open, my number is public, it's 694-4400.
So if you're in Region 3, and for that matter, any region, and you would like to engage your member of parliament, as I have said on this program, that I think members of parliament must become political activists. Because quite apart from going and holding the government accountable in the parliament, there's not very much victories we can get there in parliament in terms of affirmative victories. But I think parliamentarians can also play an important role in terms of representing people, consoling people, giving people confidence in this dark time that we are going through. So you have Mahipaul's number there. If you're from Region 3, please, you have problems, you have issues, please contact him and put him to work. As he said, he is ready to work. Welcome to those of you who are joining us. Ganesh Mahipaul is here with us tonight. Those of you who have not subscribed to our YouTube pages, please do so now, because in case Facebook knocks us out like they do sometimes, you're going to be able to join us on YouTube. The YouTube channel, of course, is Politics 101 with Dr. David Hines, or Hindsight with Dr. David Hines. Either of those two channels on YouTube. Please subscribe and make sure that you're able to join us on YouTube when and if they play games with us on Facebook. Ganesh, I saw you during the demolition operation at Mocha. All of us were there, and we witnessed the scene. We didn't just see it on social media. We were there on the ground, and we saw what happened. Um, I just leave you to express your emotions about what took place there, what took place on Sunday with that lady, what they did in front of the hospital, what they had done early in the year at Wisma Millia's ward. This demolition story, what's going on?
Dr. Hines, let me start by telling you that on Saturday I had the unfortunate visit to Parika Market, the Parika Marketing Center, where, as you know, a number of vendors suffered due to that fire. And when I saw these vendors and when they were relating their story to me, and when they were telling me about their livelihood, and when they were telling me that they have no other source of income, and when they were telling me how many children they have to feed, how many mortgages they have to pay, how many investments they made, and so on, and tears came to their eyes, and they were literally crying, big men and big women. Immediately, I got a flashback to Mocha, and I remember seeing how single mothers in Mocha were crying. The difference is the demon that destroyed the livelihood of the people at Mocha was a fire, and the demon that destroyed the livelihood of the people at Mocha was not fire. And it really, really saddened me to know that in an oil-rich country, a country where we are supposed to be looking out for our brothers and sisters to move them positively to the next level of life, a better life, positively. And we had bulldozers and excavators walking through the lands that these people were living on for years, 30 plus years. Hurtful was the fact that children had to see this. Children who left and went to school came home to know that they don't have a home to go into. It was unconscionable. It was wicked. And I can't understand how someone can sleep comfortable at nights knowing that they participated in making someone else's life uncomfortable. I understand. Don't get me wrong, Dr. Hines. I understand that government wanted these people to move. I understand that there is a major road project going on in that area. What I fear is that government was not honest to the people. First of all, the road does not run through the land that these people were occupying. I was on site and I saw that. But even if government wanted that piece of land that these people are on for whatever reason, if it's for reserve and not to give it out to some one of their friends, families, or favorite, we're yet to see that. We are yet to see that the lands that they cleared there is not going to go to somebody that belongs to them. And when that happens, then people will have to draw their conclusion again. But in the aspect of compensation, one must always consider not only the valuation done by the valuation officer, but you are really and truly moving somebody out of their comfort zone, Dr. Hines, and you are relocating them somewhere that they have to readapt. They have to take into account transportation for their children to go to school. They have to take into account where the school is located from where they are being relocated. They have to take into account all the other amenities that comes with it. And then you have their livelihood, their livestock. You had pig farmers, you had cash crop farmers, you had a whole host of other persons. All of these things have to be taken into account. And the people, the 7 families I am guiding, the 7 families that did not settle for the People's Progressive Party's small compensation are families that had a lot of monies in other items that were not valued. Like the pig farmer, the person who was rearing pigs. He had millions of dollars in pig and he was told to sell them out. And then you had the other lady who had her business. She had a shop that I think she was the sole distributor of Banks DIH products. You can't just pick up somebody like that and put them into another neighborhood and give them a land and tell them to build their house with $7 million. How will they survive in that house? How will they pay their electricity cost? How will they pay their water bill? Will their business flourish there? Is there another bank's supplier or bank's proprietor, whatever you want to call it, bank's distributor? So you're moving out this woman from her niche. You're moving out this farmer from his niche. And the people were simply asking for a little bit more compensation. Now, the government said they're asking for huge sums of money. But you and I, Dr. Hines, know what is the art of negotiation. If you want to come and buy my house, Dr. Hines, because you find comfort in the area where I'm located, I'm going to tell you a high price. I'm going to say $200 million. And you're going to tell me the lowest price possible. You're going to say 10 million. And then we got to start talk. And we might come to an amicable solution. And you will pay $50 million and I will sell you it. I say that to say to you, Dr. Hines, that the government did not engage these residents of Caneview Mocha in any way, shape, or form via a negotiation for proper compensation. It was the government throwing a figure and forcing the people to accept after living there for 30 plus years. And that is the unfortunate aspect. But there is no, and there must be no acceptance in any way, shape, or form for what happened there at Mocha. I saw with my eyes the excavator operator dismantled the home. And like he wasn't satisfied, that man then walked on the drinks cases, the banks DIH cases, dug a hole and buried those items that could be moved after the demolition. So it was like he had a vendetta. It was like he had to get back. It was like he had to do this. It was like he had to prove a point, sitting in a monster equipment and showing a poor black lady that I am boss. And when I done with you here, is everything you're going to lose. That is what I saw from that excavator operator. That is what I saw. Because I could understand you pull down the house. That is what you wanted. But oh man, the lady got she drinks there. She got she Vitamalt and she banks DIH products. She got all them things them there. What she could always pick up and go and sell or probably give back to banks and banks give her back her money. But you wanted to show that woman. You wanted to show that poor single mother that you could have dig a hole and bury those things too. It was wicked. It was ungodly. And those who believe in a God knows that he will answer that woman's prayer. I believe God will answer her prayers. Because what she went through there, no matter how wrong she is, if you want to say she's wrong, no matter how wrong she
Ganesh, Mahipaul there. Yes,
Forgive me,
we'll be back.
Dr. Hines. Maybe it was a problem of me giving out my number because I am using my phone and I'm receiving phone calls. But I'm saying, Dr. Hines, that it doesn't matter how wicked or bad one may want to say she was. You don't do that to other human beings. You don't do those things to human beings. And I'll tell people, Dr. Hines, as much as I'm a politician, I'm also a God-fearing individual. And I believe that it doesn't matter how high you climb in this life. It doesn't matter how high on the ladder you reach. As you take those steps going up, do not make bad with the people you pass on your way up. Because one way or another, you will have to come down back. And whilst coming down, and you will have to come down, you come down either by retirement, you come down either by you resigning, or you come down either by death. Whichever position you're holding in life, you will have to come down. And whilst you're coming down that ladder that you climbed, remember those people, because they will have to stretch out a hand to make you land with ease. And I always tell people that, be humble as you ascend in this life. And as I move from wherever I am, I was once a cashier, I was once a teacher, I was once a regional information officer, I'm now a member of parliament. I must never forget from whence I came. I must never forget where I came from, who I grew up with, the people I mingled with, the nice people that my teachers and my family and my friends and everybody. I must never forget them as I elevate, because part of you being a good human being, part of you being a society in a society that can evolve positively, requires you to be humble. And what that excavator man did was wicked and demonic. And what the government did by bringing the police to brutalize people, to basically police brutality at its best. I saw policemen pulling out guns and firing shots to people who did not have weapons to retaliate. And if people there had weapons to retaliate, it would have been a bloodshed. But when you could use the state and the police force to do those kinds of things to their own citizens, it means that you had one intention. And that one intention was to take the lands at Mokadir at all cost, even if it means that people had to lose their lives. And when you look at, I bring you back now, Dr. Hines, to the Parika Market fire. I remember when Monrepo Market had its issues where they alleged that people came and broke down stalls and robbed some person, and I hear some lady claim $3 million for Pulauri. She had a Pulauri stand and $3 million, I'm told. I saw it in a newspaper or something like that. And I think she was compensated 200,000 or somewhere thereabout. And that happened very quickly. You would remember if an Ali actually went into Monrepo, if an Ali went there on the ground in Monrepo, and then later on brought the people and compensated them very quickly. The fire that destroyed these vendors at Parika, their stalls, and their livelihood. They met with Irfan Ali at State House yesterday. And I'm told that they were harassed. I'm told that they were basically belittled. And I'm told that they were not given any proper satisfaction for compensation. And this is not a fire that was caused by them. So when you look at Mocha, when you look at Parika, when you look at the lady that you spoke about with her fence, that was at at the gardens there. And when you look at all the incidents, you look at the extrajudicial killing. I still remember the Boston family. I still remember Joel Henry and Isaiah Henry, the Henry boys. I still remember the other young man that was there in Region 5. I still remember the Region 2 gunning down at Dartmouth. I still remember the Golden Grove incident. When you look at what has happened in this country from 2020 to now, there is nothing to celebrate. Largest budget ever, yes. Oil and gas conference we're having. We're having all of these big coming back out in the public after COVID-19. But look at that against what we got from the state. The extrajudicial killing, the targeting of one race over the other. I made a speech in the National Assembly where I said, and I hold to this position, that we don't have one Guyana. We have 7 distinct Guyanas. The Amerindians have their Guyana. The Europeans have their Guyana. The Africans have the worst Guyana. The Portuguese have their Guyana. The East Indians have the best Guyana. The Chinese is searching for their Guyana. And the mixed race is fighting for a place in this Guyana. 7 distinct Guyanas. And a government, installed albeit, is trying to hoodwink us into claiming that they are all about one Guyana. But if the government is about one Guyana, then why is it that you have an operation such as this oil and gas conference, International Oil and Gas Conference? Why is it that they could not have ensured that the members of the opposition in its entirety, all the members of parliament, why is it that they could not have ensured that they were invited to participate? You remember there was a flag-raising activity where the members of the opposition were not invited to it. I think that was the 2020 flag-raising.
Yeah.
2021, sorry, the 2021 flag. Yeah, the 2020, is it 2021? 2021 flag-raising.
2021, yes.
The opposition was not invited to participate. 2022, they decided to invite us in Region 2 because they did it in Region 2, but they didn't cater for us for accommodation. They didn't cater for us for meals, and they didn't cater for us for transportation. But it's one Guyana. It's one Guyana. Yeah? Let me tell you something. When I hear Irfan talk about one Guyana, I want to laugh. As sad as it is, I have to laugh at it. Because Irfan wants us to embrace him. Irfan wants us to recognize him. Irfan wants us to accept him. But he is not prepared to respect us. He is not prepared to accept that we are part and parcel of this country. He is not prepared to accept that we are a part of the development of this country. That we sit in the National Assembly and we sit on 200 plus thousand votes. That is according to GCOM. But I strongly believe that the elections were rigged, and I'm yet to be proven otherwise. Because I always say, Dr. Hines, I sat in the national recount, and I saw the 49 ballot boxes that had no statutory documents to verify the votes in them. I saw names of dead people ticked off on the official list of electors indicating that they voted. I saw unsigned oaths of identity and their votes were counted. I saw names of people who migrated and did not return to this country on or before March 2nd, 2020, and their names were ticked off as voted. I saw fraud. I saw irregularities, abnormalities, and anomalies. And for me to be proven wrong, then somebody got to come and prove how these things happen. So no court, no person, no system can change what I saw, Dr. Hines. I saw fraud. And as far as I'm concerned, Irfan is sitting on fraudulent votes. And I don't say that easily. In fact, I don't ever say things easily because I always ensure that I have substance behind what I say. And I do my research. This is not one that I had to research. This is something that I witnessed. I participated in it. I submitted names. I was in Station 5 of the National Recount. So I know what I'm talking about. And if Irfan wants the respect and he wants the acceptance of me and my colleagues on the other side, then he got to start acting as though he is for all. Because he is sitting in the seat of power. He is squatting in that seat. He doesn't have long more there. But for the time that is left, for him to occupy that seat, if he wants to come off of that seat with a good name, then he got to stop talking one Guyana and showing the people one Guyana. He has to start disciplining his rogue ministers. Dharam Lal should not be sitting in parliament, disrespecting the female MP. Kwame McCoy, lewd and crude, disgusting thing, should not be sitting there in the National Assembly. But you want to tell us you're one Guyana and look at what you have there in your National Assembly? Man, give me a break.
Give me a break. Ganesh Mahipaul, a mouthful here tonight, but as usual, he has a lot to say. And, he came here tonight, he walked us through the budget, and then gave us a bird's eye view of what took place at that national recount, a narrative of the 2020 election, which we keep alive on this program. Ganesh, my brother, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you. We have stolen some of a brother. He's gonna forgive me because
Duncan, Sheriff
Brother
Duncan.
Duncan. He's gonna forgive me because of you, because I will tell him it's his fellow parliamentarian. Make a thief some of his time tonight. Closing thoughts, Ganesh.
Thank you, Dr. Hines, for having me on your program. It's a privilege being here. I know I'm not often a guest on your program. It's only because of my busy schedule. But I assure you that you will see me back at another time on a mutual agreement.
Thank you very much. And to you, the audience, I want to thank you all so much. Without you, we can't do this. Please go and subscribe to our YouTube pages, Politics 101 with Dr. David Hines, or and Hindsight 101 with Dr. David Hines. Shout out to the brother who's joining us from Bahrain. Bahrain, out there in the Middle East. Those of you joining us from California, good night. I noticed a couple of people from California. I can't remember the names, but LA area, California. You know we story go. We just call California, LA is part of the state, LA City, LA County. Welcome to those of you joining us from California, and all of you, North Carolina, Bloomfield, New Jersey, Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx, Canada, Ontario, Toronto, wherever you are in Canada, and of course, Guyana and the wider Caribbean. Thank you all for being with us tonight. I'll see you all again tomorrow night. And for the lovers in the house, happy Valentine's Day. See you all tomorrow when we come again for another edition of Politics 101.